We are all selfish beings, and it's something that we have to remember, that you think that everyone is judging you and that everyone is like out to get you, when in reality everyone else is feeling the same thing. Hello everyone, my name is Elizabeth. Welcome to my channel. If you're new, then I'd love for you to subscribe for more videos on being your authentic self and creating your dream life. I would love to have you on board and a part of the team, a part of my journey. So today I would like to talk to you guys about social anxiety. This is a little bit of a complicated topic, and there are different levels of anxiety and social anxiety. And if anxiety is something that you deal with, then I have a video from a couple months ago where I talk about my story with OCD, intrusive thoughts, and anxiety. So definitely go and check it out if you'd like. I'm gonna put a link down below. So first and foremost, I do want to say that different things work for different people. So what works for me won't necessarily work for you, but hopefully you do find it helpful. And it comes to having anxiety or really dealing with anything in your life, people deal with things in different ways, and it shows up for people in different ways as well. And just because you might feel like you have more anxiety than someone else, it doesn't mean that that person is not dealing with something that is hard for them. So if you ever had an incident where you told someone that you were like anxious and they were like, oh please, like you're fine, there are people out there who feel so much worse than you. On one hand, yes, and sometimes it's important to kind of get a perspective and feel a little bit better about what you have. However, it's all about your own perspective, and what can be super hard for you to deal with might be easier for someone else to deal with, and what seems super complicated for someone else might be easy for you. So it's all based on your experiences, the way that your mind works, the way that your body works, you know, the experiences that you've had in your life. So if anyone has ever told you not to feel bad about what you're going through, does not mean that you're not going through something really serious. But at the same time, don't discredit what other people are going through as well. I think that we should all be really compassionate and understanding, because mental health is not something that we fully understand yet. I think that's where a lot of us get in trouble. We're not taking it seriously and then being completely unaware of what someone else is going through, or being afraid to speak out about it. So I think it's so important to share your own experiences, even if it seems super minor, or if you feel super scared to share because you think that you're gonna sound crazy. Most likely you're not, and most likely so many other people are going through this. So the reason why I wanted to talk about social anxiety is because it's something that I've been going through quite a bit over the last couple of years, and I think for me personally it ties in a lot with just having anxiety in general. And I think that if I'm going through something, and there are probably other people that go through something similar. I think it's important to share our stories and kind of just things will work for us, and hopefully it will help someone else as well. So if you have gone through something similar, then definitely leave a comment below and let me know. So another thing that I want to mention is that being shy and having social anxiety are completely different things, so that's just one thing to keep in mind. And something that I really want to mention is that there are so many different qualities that make up a person, and you know, having one or a couple of other things that you have to deal with and you have to overcome and work on does not define you as a human being. And so I think a lot of the time people are scared to talk about these things because they think that they're just going to be labeled, and unfortunately we do live in a society where that was the case for a while. However, I think that the more people are coming out and telling their stories, the more other people are becoming more understanding and also feel more comfortable sharing their own stories. It's definitely more common than people realize, and yeah, just because it's something that you're going through does not mean that that's who you are as a person. You choose how you want to present yourself to the world, and you choose the way that you want to see yourself and who you want to be on this planet. Now, this does not mean ignoring things that we have to work on, but it's also not just labeling ourselves with things that we don't necessarily want to label ourselves with. And the only reason why I wanted to say that is because I know that I've been in a position where I didn't want to talk about having OCD or something because I thought that people would just think that I'm crazy. However, after a while I'm like, well no, that's not the only thing that I am as a person. It's just something that I had to deal with. The thing is exercising the muscle. You know, you have to identify what your goal is and then work at it consistently every day, and that's really the only way it's gonna get better. Just because you do have social anxiety or just anxiety in general, it does not mean that you're a weak person. And this is just something that I thought in the past, that if your mind functions a certain way, then you're just weak. And that's not true. Yes, perhaps you are sensitive and maybe you're more prone to feeling these kind of things or experiencing those kind of things if you are a little more sensitive. However, there are so many positives and so many strengths in being sensitive. And I think I want to make a separate video on this. With every aspect, with every trait, I feel like there are minuses and there are pluses. And if you're a sensitive person, then there's so many pluses. And then you have some minuses that you have to work through. However, you're not a weak person. You're not crazy. You might be a little sensitive and it might just be something that you have to work through, but you can feel better and you can work through it. So I'm gonna share with you guys a little bit of my background and just what it is that I feel, and then just 5 things that really help me to kind of snap out of it in a way and be a little more present in the moment and just to calm down when I am feeling symptoms of social anxiety. And these are things that could not only help you with social anxiety, but being shy as well, or just having trouble with talking to other people or feeling uncomfortable in social environments just in general. I think these are things that can be really beneficial and just pretty cool tips and tricks that can help you in a lot of different ways. So I don't consider myself a shy person at all. When I was little, I was so outgoing and I just loved people and I wouldn't be afraid of anyone or anything, and I feel like a lot of people can relate. A lot of people are probably like that as kids, but then things happen. Middle school, high school happens, and then you have all of these different experiences with people, and then you start to kind of identify with that and think that that's who you are as a person. But some things just kind of probably stick in your head. Someone made fun of you at one point, and then you think that everyone that you pass by on the street who's smiling is just laughing at you. Obviously that's not the case, and I think a big part of kind of feeling anxious in social environments is just maybe having a previous past experience that sort of traumatized you, and it might not even been that big of a deal, but it's still really stuck in your head as a kid, and then you just carried it with you all throughout your life, and it's still somewhere in the back of your head, and it's what's kind of giving you that perspective on things. So I have a little bit of that, I feel like, that I'm trying to work through, and at the same time, what happens to me basically sometimes is that, and this is definitely more present when I'm stressed or tired, or I have not put myself into a social environment like in a whole day, if I've been stuck at home or I'm in work mode. I work with kids a lot, so when I'm spending a whole day with kids and then I have to go out to a store, then that's when it really hits me. And I'm well rested when I feel good. It doesn't really happen most of the time, but when I'm, kind of stuck in my head, feeling a little anxious, feeling stressed, that's when it gets really bad. And basically what happens to me is that, let's say I'm going to Starbucks or I'm going into a store, and all of a sudden, sometimes I feel it beforehand and I kind of just start freaking out in my head and my body feels numb. I get so anxious and just so uncomfortable with making eye contact with anyone that I almost don't even want to go into the Starbucks and get a cup of coffee, because I just don't want to deal with that feeling and I don't want to be surrounded by people. I feel extremely uncomfortable and almost unaware of my body, and this just sounds really dramatic and it sounds really scary saying it out loud, but when you're in the moment, it just does kind of become a part of your daily life in a way. So basically my body feels numb and I just dread talking to anyone. I don't want to make eye contact with them. I feel I don't feel my body, I don't feel present. I just don't feel connected with myself. It might be hard to express my thoughts in that moment and to really make sentences sound right, because I'm so just overwhelmed and too busy over analyzing every little thing, and then being paranoid that everyone thinks that I'm a freak and thinking about how they're seeing me right now. So this might happen with something as simple as going to a Starbucks. I personally don't like going shopping. I love to do online shopping. I don't like going to malls or anything, because again, I get really bad anxiety there. Not all the time, but especially when I'm alone. I can't really focus on things. If I want to ask something, it's hard for me to kind of word things, and I just kind of feel stumbly, and just like all of that put together creates a very uncomfortable experience. And like I said, this happens when I go to malls by myself, if I'm like really tired and I have to go to a store or like even a coffee shop. I dread going out sometimes because I feel like I'm gonna make a fool of myself. And again, not really because I'm shy, because I feel like I talk to people well. I have amazing friends, and when I do get into a conversation with people, a lot of the time it goes really well, but it's just something that happens within my mind, and it's the way my body reacts and kind of the fears that come along with it is what kind of sets it aside from just like being shy. And again, I'm not saying that this is so terrible for me, and I'm not complaining, and I do believe that there are much worse cases out there, but this is just what I feel, and I think it's important for me to share that with you. So, and I still do what I need to do. I still get out there, I still do talk to people, but it just comes with so much dread a lot of the time. I feel like people might be making fun of me, or I look like a freakazoid for whatever reason, or I'm gonna be super stumbly or just unfocused. And so all of these thoughts just kind of creep in, and then I don't really want to go out and do anything, but I still push myself to do it, and I still do what I have to do. Thankfully, it's not like at a point where I avoid doing things. It's just kind of like the dread that comes with it. And just to mention, I don't really have a fear of like public speaking or anything. I actually felt pretty comfortable always like presenting, like performing. I grew up in sports and, you know, going to competitions and in dance. I enjoy that. So when I feel like I'm on a mission, I have like a purpose, I have something to do, you know, like a performance or a speech or something, then I do feel pretty, I get nerves obviously, but I feel pretty comfortable with it. However, it's just like daily social interactions. That's kind of where it hits me the most when it is present. So now I'm gonna share with you guys 5 tips that do really help me to kind of get out of myself a little bit, be a little more present, and to feel a little bit better when I do feel super anxious. You know, I like to ask myself what it is that I'm really afraid of in the moment, and is it rational and is it relevant? For example, if I'm walking by a crowd of people having fun and laughing, I might really lock up in that moment. Again, especially if I'm by myself and I don't have someone to kind of interact with. I don't know what to do with myself. I don't know where to look, what to do with my hands. Like, I forget how to be a human being basically, and I just get really, really overwhelmed and almost like flushed sometimes. Although it is something that just comes with having social anxiety, with having anxiety. I also know that I have had previous experiences when I was younger, specifically like in middle school. And it's funny because I don't think it has happened since middle school, but you know, there were instances where, you know, as a kid you get made fun of sometimes, whatever, you know, it happens. But those experiences really, really stayed in my head. And even though I continued to be confident and just talkative in middle school, that really stuck with me. And I started kind of defining myself as those things that I was like being made fun of for. And so to this day, if I'm like alone and someone is laughing or just kind of smiling to themselves or something, I just assume that they have to be making fun of me. And I ask myself, like, is this rational? Is this relevant? Like, what it is that I'm actually scared of. I'm like, well, no, this is something that happened years ago. It's something that happened like over a decade ago, and it's just something that was stuck in my head for a long time, but it doesn't mean that it applies to me anymore. It doesn't mean that it defines me. It's just an experience. It's something, it's an event that happened and it's gone, it's done, and I'm a new person every minute. I don't have to associate with that event. And that's just something that I have to remind myself over and over again. So just because someone is smiling in front of me doesn't mean that they're making fun of me. I mean, they could be, but whatever, it doesn't matter even if they are. I have to live with myself and the way that I feel, and I can choose whether it affects me or not. Those few events, that one event, should not define you as a person. You have the right and the freedom to choose the way that you want to be, the way that you want to act, and the way that you want to respond. Just kind of asking myself a couple of those things and identifying what exactly triggers those thoughts and anxiety definitely helps to kind of bring myself back and change my perspective a little bit and really help me in the moment. So something else that greatly helps me with feeling a little calmer in social situations, and this is something that I mentioned a couple of videos ago, kind of how my Be You, Be Free motto came to be. I was working on a project with really cool people, but I just felt like I couldn't be myself. I was super anxious and I couldn't talk to anyone. I felt like everyone was judging me, everyone was making fun of me, and that made me just act really standoffish and really closed up and just kind of keep to myself. And I would suffer because I would want to talk to those people so much, and I just wanted to be a part of that group because I feel like I could really relate to them, and they were so fun. But there were those like little demons in my head who were like, no, they're judging you, and no, you just have to sit quietly and be anxious and be scared. And then I got so tired of it that I just told myself, just be free. And what that meant to me is that regardless of how I feel, regardless of what the situation is and what I think the situation is, I'm gonna be free. I'm gonna allow myself to just be calm, to just be neutral, and to just be in harmony with myself and really allow events to unfold as they are, and just try my best to socialize, try my best to smile. So even if I feel like someone's judging me and then that like drunk monkey in my head starts telling me all of these false things, in that moment I'm not gonna react to that. I'm gonna be free, and instead I'm still gonna, you know, smile at that person, or I'm still gonna just take a breath and feel relaxed and, you know, do my own thing and not be affected by those like negative things that I think are happening or that are happening in my head. Just even if they are happening in your head, you still don't have to react to them physically. You don't have to take action according to that. You can still take action according to what your heart is telling you to do. And then every day it started to be better, and I started to feel more comfortable with just being myself and being nicer to people and being a little more open. Something that I read in a book not too long ago, and I actually don't really remember what book it was from, but if I do, I'm gonna link it down below, is basically if you know you're going into a social environment, and this really helps with like dates and interviews or really any social interaction. So before going out and being social, take some time to imagine that situation, whether it's just being out socially or it's an interview or a date or anything. Imagine it in your head and imagine yourself already being there, and kind of imagine the way it would unfold, and really try to be there, really try to feel what you would feel, and kind of play out a scene in your head of how you think it would go, and act the way that you would want to act. If you want to be open and just answering confidently and being calm and being present, then picture yourself doing that specifically, and just really try to feel those emotions and try to really summon those feelings, and just try to really specifically play out that scenario in your head. And by doing that, when you are actually in that environment, your mind won't react as abruptly to it, and instead it's going to feel more familiar in that situation because you already played it out in your head, and it is more likely that you will act more closely to the way you imagine yourself acting, or you would just feel a little more calmer in that situation because you are already familiar with it. Your mind doesn't really separate reality from what goes on in your head, and so in your mind you technically already went through that situation, so you're more likely to act the way you pictured yourself acting, or just to be a little more calmer in general. So my next tip is a little bit weird, but it works for me, and I love films and I love acting, and I did acting for a while, and so this is something that I can relate to. I don't know if this is going to be helpful for other people, but I have a lot of fun with this. And basically, when going into a situation, before going out and interacting with anyone, and if you feel anxious or nervous, create a character for yourself, and either create a character that is confident and that's outgoing and that can talk to people easily, and you know, you can be really specific and have a lot of fun with it. Or something that I used to like to do, and this sounds a little odd, but you pretend that you're like a spy on a mission, and your mission is to like befriend this person, like get certain information. And so when you go into that environment, you kind of have that mindset and you feel a little more confident with interacting with other people, and it's just a little bit of like a fun way to kind of get outside of yourself, and instead of focusing on your anxiety and just getting stuck in your head, you kind of put your focus elsewhere, and it's just a little easier to interact that way and makes it a little bit funner. Dealing with social anxiety or anxiety in general, mindfulness is something that really helps, and that's what a lot of people talk about, you know, meditation and mindfulness. And there's so many different ways of feeling mindful and of getting in touch with your body, and a lot of it is calming your thoughts and kind of not being like attached to those anxious thoughts that are going in your head, instead of just quieting your mind and being more connected with your body. So it's all about finding those kind of things. It's all about finding ways that really work for you to do that, and just playing these little scenarios and creating these characters. It's just a little way that really helps me to disconnect from the chaos in my head and instead to just refocus my energy onto something else. Something that happens to me when I'm feeling social anxiety, when going through social anxiety, is just feeling disconnected from my body and feeling like my body is numb, feeling really fumbly because I feel like my body's just doing one thing, my head is like elsewhere. And so something that really helps is just to take a moment and take a breath and really reconnect with yourself and just feel your feet on the ground, you know, feel your fingers, your hands, your arms. Just start to connect with your body and really feel every part of yourself. You know, just take a couple of seconds to do that, and it helps to kind of just reconnect and to refocus. And this is something that you can do throughout the day, and it's going to help you to kind of remember to do that when you are feeling anxious. And you know, also just focusing on something specific. Perhaps if you're in a room with a lot of people, then instead of getting lost in the chaos in your head, start identifying everything in the room that's red, or start counting something. Not in like an obsessive way, but this is just to focus your attention on something other than feeling anxious and kind of going mad in your head. And also sometimes I just have to remind myself to slow down. I'm feeling not really present and a little chaotic, and I start dropping things and just become more clumsy. And so I just have to remind myself, especially during those moments, to just slow down. And by just slowing down and really kind of focusing on my speech and just like speaking a little slower and moving a little slower, that once again really helps you to reconnect with your mind and with your body, and to kind of just be a little more present in the moment. Something else that really helps me is to basically make it about them. So ask yourself, what can you give to a person? If you have to talk to a person one-on-one, then think about, what can you give? How can you make that person feel good? Give compliments, make it about them. We are all selfish beings, and it's something that we have to remember, that you think that everyone is judging you and that everyone is like out to get you, when in reality everyone else is feeling the same thing. Everyone else is scared to be judged. Everyone else is like in their head probably worried about something else, worried about the way they're acting. We're all worried about ourselves in a way. And so when you are feeling anxious or thinking that everyone is like focusing on you and everyone's laughing at you, just remind yourself that they're all probably thinking the same thing about themselves. Make it a goal to contribute somehow to someone else, to either a person or a group of people. Smile at someone, or just think about how you can make someone's day better and how you can make them feel better. And just again, refocusing your attention from yourself to someone else really helps you to calm down and to have a better interaction and just to feel better and make a positive difference at the same time. And so the last tip that I want to mention, and again, it might sound a little strange, but it helps me a lot. So if I am walking on a street and I'm feeling really anxious and I just don't want to make eye contact with anyone, and I start to be like really afraid of people or just being surrounded by people, I remind myself of something really mundane or just something really simple that we all do. And this is kind of similar to when you're giving a presentation or something. Just imagine everyone naked. Common advice that people give you. Well, actually, this is really helpful with social anxiety, I feel like, as well. Just to do whenever you feel uncomfortable surrounded by people. I think it's easy to forget that we're all humans and we're all the same with the same needs. And when you're feeling super anxious, it's easy to separate yourself from the rest of humanity and think that you're a weirdo alien and everyone else are these humans, when in reality that's not true. We are all weirdo alien humans. I guess we all have our quirks, we all have our fears and our strengths and weaknesses, and just reminding myself yourself that like, oh, it's okay, like we all sleep, or oh, we all eat. We just all want to be loved. I want to be loved. Oh, they want to be loved. I want to hug. They want to hug. They're probably not trying to judge me. They probably just want to hug or whatever. Just something like that. And it sounds a little weird out loud, but it honestly helps so much because it just reminds you that we're all really the same and we all have the same needs. And as much as we think that people want to laugh at us or are judging us, and especially when we do feel really anxious or just uncomfortable within ourselves, it's just important to remind yourself that we are all living in our own heads and we all have our own fears and we're all thinking the same thing probably about one another. So it's just an important reminder. And so by kind of just picturing something mundane that we all do, that we all have in common, reminds me that at the core, we're all the same with the same needs. We all want the same thing, and so people are not as scary as they may seem in our heads. These are all things that really help me to kind of snap back into myself a little more, feel a little more present, feel a little more comfortable. And I think it's so important to share our stories, no matter how simple they might seem or how scary they might seem. I think someone out there can really be helped and can really relate. And whatever it is that you feel, you know, just because someone else might be feeling worse doesn't discredit what you feel, and vice versa. Different things work for different people and different people need different things. So it's important to do your own research, to listen to other people's stories, to seek help, to speak to therapists. You know, if you need to try medication, then try medication, but it's important to not just listen to one person's opinion and then just see it as your solution, but instead really listen to your heart and listen to different people and do your own research and read different articles and talk to different doctors, to different therapists, until you really find something that works for you. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you found it to be helpful or inspiring. I'd love to see if you have dealt with anything similar, and even if you haven't and if your experience has been different, then definitely still leave a comment below and let me know. Don't forget to like the video if you found it to be helpful, and subscribe for more videos on being your authentic self and creating your dream life. I hope that you have a beautiful day, and I'll see you in the next video.